For years, Missouri fans thought Faurot Field was cursed, but recently it's been a place of magic for the Missouri Tigers. So let's revel in one of the unlikeliest victories in Missouri history coming up right now on Locked On Mizzou.
You are Locked On Mizzou, your daily podcast on the Missouri Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, all you true sons and daughters, I'm John Miller, your Mizzou mafioso and the central scrutinizer of Missouri Tigers football and basketball. And I want to remind you that today's program is brought to you by FanDuel. You got to make every moment more with FanDuel and get a big return this season. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets. If you win your first $5 bet, just visit FanDuel.com to get started. And as Mike Kelly said last night on Zion Young's Scoop and Score, how do you like that? Unbelievable. What a finish, really. I mean, as I've said all season here, as my golf coach likes to tell me, see, this is why you have to stay in the moment. You never know when crazy things are going to happen in this world. Somehow, 28 points were scored in less than 3 minutes of game time in the fourth quarter there after that first half. By the way, not exactly the prettiest offensive football I've seen for either one of those teams. Now, of course, half of those 28 points were scored on two scoop and scores, one with about 35 seconds or so left for Missouri. What a moment for Theo Weiss. What a moment for Drew Pyne. What a moment for Luther Burden, the whole team. Theo Weiss Jr. said, I'm starting to believe Faurot Field has got some real magic in it. And what a perspective for him to have. 2 seasons here as a Missouri Tiger. He doesn't remember all the crazy stuff that happened, especially in the north end zone over the years. The 5th down, the flea kicker, even all the stuff in 2022. And it almost felt like the curse had peaked a little bit. All the weirdness that happened at the end of that Auburn game. Of course, the roughing the punter situation against Kentucky. Just a whole bunch of weird losses for Missouri that season. Well, ever since, it's completely flipped, hasn't it? Even in the north end zone, Harrison Mevis hits a 60-plus yard game-winning field goal against Kansas State into the north end of Faurot Field. And then yesterday, Theo Weiss with an absolutely incredible catch for a touchdown from Drew Pyne. And hey, that 3rd and 17 to Luther Burden down the left sideline wasn't too shabby either, going down the north way. And it did feel good to be on the lucky side, didn't it? Also, eat it, Oklahoma. But more than that, I think this is the second time 2 weeks in a row where after the game I was really in shock. And truly it took me a few hours to sort of process what I had just seen. What a crazy season this has been for Missouri, especially you include the Vanderbilt double overtime game, the Boston College comeback where Missouri was down 2 scores. It's been an absolutely wild season in a lot of ways here for Missouri. Obviously, the 2 road games have been disappointing. Missouri's got a really good South Carolina squad coming up next week. They're playing probably as good a football as just about anybody in the league right now. But you know what? Before we get to next week, and I'll have tons of time to get to the South Carolina game, but we've really got to revel in this victory here a little bit. And I especially am happy for Drew Pyne. And on Drew Pyne, Eli Drinkwitz said, for all the crap he's taken, for him to come out here, ignore the noise, some of it from y'all in this room, he goes out there and delivers in the keyest moments in the fourth quarter. And I'm giggling there a little bit because, to be honest, while I feel fantastic for Drew Pyne, and it had to not feel great to take all the crap that he got from Missouri fans online, but some of y'all in this room, that part cracked me up a little bit because I'll defend the Missouri beat writers a little bit here. I haven't seen anybody be unfair to Drew Pyne. I really haven't. And I read about the Tigers as much as anybody out there. I've seen some people say that he hasn't played well, and I think that's totally fair. It's not like anybody said Drew Pyne wasn't trying or that he was a bad guy or anything like that. But I mentioned that 3rd and 17 pass. Great pass by Pyne, of course. Great catch as well. Well, on 2nd and 17, Drew Pyne threw a ball down that same sideline that was out of bounds by a good 5 to 10 yards, and that's not an exaggeration. Too often with Pyne, that was kind of the problem there was, wow, those are some really wildly inaccurate passes that he threw. So I think the constructive criticism of Pyne was just fine. Didn't mean to make the rhyme there, but sometimes, like Theo Wee said, magic happens. But speaking of magic, you got to love these quotes from Drew Pyne after the game, by the way. Pyne said, "I'd be willing to die out there. I don't care. I love these guys on this team. Brady Cook is my best friend here. He's been dying to play in this game his whole life. I told him I'd do everything I could to win this game for him. One of the proudest moments of my life." So again, God bless you, Drew Pyne. You became an absolute true son today. There is no question about that. You have your constructive criticisms of Pyne's game all you want. At a certain point, you're missing the point because Drew Pyne put it all out there for Missouri today. He wasn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but when Missouri needed some gigantic plays, guess who came through in that moment? Not only with his arm, but with his legs, too. And as we said, none of us even knew he could do that, talking about Pyne's running ability. In the second half, Missouri took over at the Oklahoma 30-yard line after a forced fumble. Well, on a 3rd and 7, Pyne scrambled for a first down, and then a 3rd and long quarterback draw play ended up working as well. So that ultimately 3rd down and goal from the 5, little rollout touchdown to the tight end, Brett Norfleet, as well. At that point, boy, it almost felt like an insurmountable lead, didn't it? Missouri up 16-9, kicking the extra point with less than 9 minutes left in the ball game. But of course, Blake Craig pulled that extra point left, and suddenly it just felt like nothing could go right for Missouri. Oklahoma did offensively start finding a little bit of momentum offensively on the ground. Definitely not in the passing game ever whatsoever, but a nice trick play by Oklahoma in the red zone. Give them some credit. 3rd down and 4 from the 18. Tigers were burnt on a double pass from the receiver back to the quarterback. Jackson Arnold catches it, rumbles it in for the touchdown, and then basically, I believe the very next offensive snap for Missouri, or pretty close to it anyway, Jamal Roberts fumbles the ball. Oklahoma picks it up, runs it into the end zone, takes a 7-point lead, and at that point, man, especially after a big sack by Oklahoma on the next series for Missouri, it just felt like, wow, we've really blown this. We went from, in less than a minute of game time, from thinking, hey, we're in great shape here. Good luck to Oklahoma on getting by an 8-point lead. But then, like I said, the missed extra point, suddenly everything just started going wrong for Missouri over the next couple minutes or so. But then, again, another incredible, I broke down that drive a little bit, the third down pass. I really think that was adjacent. When you look back on it now, even though it wasn't a 4th and 17, a do-or-die play like against Florida last season by Luther Burden, but really that 3rd and 17, it was pretty darn close in terms of importance and everything else. Tigers still very much can match last season's win total from the regular season and all of that good stuff. Just an incredible drive, by the way, by Pyne and the whole Missouri offense after what was a tough day for the most part. But this was clearly by far their best drive. 75 yards, 8 plays in just 57 seconds, ties the game with a minute left. And then, of course, Zion Young picks the ball up. Tristan Newsom forced it out with about 30 or so seconds left. By the way, Zion Young's last touchdown ninth grade, he said, when he was playing fullback. So a great time to get his first collegiate touchdown. What an incredible game for Missouri. It really was. A boring game in the first half, but, well, that second half got pretty interesting in a hurry, didn't it? And a rough offensive showing and a somewhat fortunate victory for Missouri is not going to stop Eli Drinkwitz from beating his chest in the postgame. There is no question about that. Plus, I have some more historical context for just how crazy of an ending this was for the Tigers yesterday. All that coming up in just a second. First, though, let me tell you about LinkedIn Jobs, because when you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. And on LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. If there's anybody in all of Columbia, Missouri who loves the sound of his voice into a microphone, even more than me, well, I think it's got to be Eli Drinkwitz. And yesterday, Coach Drink said, normally when we win, we fall in the rankings. So we'll see. Shade and joke noted from you, Coach. I loved it. And by the way, during his opening statement during the post game yesterday, Drinkwitz said this will be real disappointing to Bob Stoops, but OU doesn't always whoop Missouri's butt anymore. Drinkwitz didn't say but I'm trying to stay on the right side of YouTube corporate censorship. But I just thought, by the way, it seemed a little tongue-in-cheek from Drinkwitz there. It seems like maybe him and Bob Stoops get along a little bit. Drinkwitz said on the return of the series with OU, it felt pretty good. I thought Coach Stoops did a good job stirring it up this summer. And I thought their coaches did some things to stir it up this summer with some tweets. And then you read that and you go, you know what? Maybe Drinkwitz doesn't actually have any friends in college football. It doesn't seem like he really cares about making them in the coaching ranks, openly trolling Dan Mullen and Josh Heupel, and now, of course, Oklahoma and Bob Stoops, the former head coach as well. Is Bob Stoops still in the XFL, by the way? Actually, who gives a crap? Enough with Bob Stoops. Really, I did grow tired of that guy and all of his bulletin board material, quote unquote bulletin board material at a certain point. So you know what, Drinkwitz, good on you for throwing a little bit of a dagger into his rib cage. Now, it is amusing to me that Drinkwitz very much willing to pound his chest after that type of performance, because let's be real, in the first half, Missouri looked inept offensively, to say the least. And I was just thinking, I understand Missouri's got their backup quarterback here. I understand the offensive line hasn't been up to snuff this season, and that was certainly the case, especially in the first half. But it was just hard for me to believe that our offense could be that bad. And indeed, in the second half, the Tigers did find a little something in the second half with a couple of touchdowns. Drew Pyne's feet started to help a little bit. But when you really look at Pyne's box score, hey, you see he throws for 143 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no picks. Obviously not a lot to brag about with 143 yards, but the key number there, no interceptions. The fact that Missouri did not give the ball away in the passing game, I think that's a massive deal, because against Alabama, had Pyne been able to avoid the interceptions, well, maybe that's a little bit different looking of a ball game. Certainly it's more competitive, and the Tigers are at least within their game plan of ball control, field position, which I think they figured that out this week, and like I said in the preview leading up to this, I think if you protect the ball, which Missouri did relatively well, of course, the Jamal Roberts late fumble, the scoop and score, that looked like that was going to be the dagger, which was sort of to my point. But the fact that Pyne was able to control the football, not give it away to Oklahoma, that gave Oklahoma the opportunities to give the game back to Missouri, and thank you very much for that, Sooners. And since I brought up that Missouri offensive line, unfortunately, Connor Tollison appeared to suffer a pretty significant injury in the fourth quarter of that ball game. The Missouri center was seen on crutches on the sideline, so we'll have to get an update later this week on Tollison's status for South Carolina and indeed the rest of the season. Not looking great at first glance, I got to say that. But what did look pretty good was Drake Heismeyer. You got to say the young man came in off the bench. Heismeyer's really been a guy who hasn't gotten a ton of action in his Missouri career, a guy who's been known for a entertaining social media presence and all that good stuff, a good teammate and all of that, but a guy who was a really important part of the Missouri offense in the fourth quarter that came alive a little bit. Drinkwitz himself singled out Heismeyer as doing a really good job in the fourth quarter, and for a center to come in off the bench, it's not exactly like coming off the bench as a cold quarterback, but it's pretty close. It's one of the more difficult positions, I would say, to come in cold off the bench, just especially in a fourth quarter of a close ball game. You got to give Heismeyer a lot of credit, I think, for being prepared for that moment. Also, I mentioned Tristan Newson's forced fumble late in the game, of course, that led to the Zion Young scoop and score. Well, that was probably the biggest defensive play of the game, but Newson's fellow linebacker Corey Flagg was all over the field with 14 tackles in the ball game. An excellent game from Corey Flagg, who seems to be kind of coming on with each and every week. It has been a really good find in the transfer portal for Missouri. Another big play that is going to go a little bit forgotten, I think, because the Tigers ended up settling for a field goal in the first half. But with the Tigers finding no offense whatsoever, it was actually Marquis Johnson on special teams who made something happen. Marquis, I thought, really good hustle as the gunner on the outside there. Basically burnt the man he had. Took him a couple different ways, ran around the guy, never really got any hands on Marquis, and then Johnson was able to basically get in the face of the returner, legally get in the face of the returner without actually touching him, but clearly Johnson's presence and hustle there, I think, bothered the Oklahoma Sooner returner, who clearly should have gone for a fair catch there in hindsight. But either way, a muff, the Tigers recover and take over down 6 with about 6 minutes left in the half. Unfortunately, the Tigers settle for a field goal after the Tiger motion man, the tight end in motion, completely misses his block, number 1 on first down. But Johnson there, even though the Tigers settled for 3, obviously in a close game, that was a key moment for Missouri. And while Marquis Johnson hasn't put up the production in the passing game that I thought he was going to in 2024 for the second straight year, hey, it's not going to be remembered like the Luke Bauer faked punt, but another big play by Marquis Johnson on special teams for the second season in a row. And right before that Blake Craig missed field goal attempt, by the way, I had one of my best buddies say that the Tigers should have gone for 2 in that spot. This was not retroactive thinking, by the way. This is the make it 9 strategy that me and my friend argue about and often champion all the time. So is there some merit to that? Should the Tigers have gone for 2? Let's talk about that here in just a second. First, though, I want to say that with Robinhood Gold, here's the beauty. You don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, The resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.5% APY on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at Robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply for product-specific disclosures. Visit Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risks. Rates may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. And get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch during a game, you can check out the latest stats, view the play-by-play, and so much more on the very same page where you make your wagers. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. By the way, I was saying as I left the stadium last night, I can't ever remember a close Missouri game where there were two defensive touchdowns in the fourth quarter, one by each team, that basically looked like they ended the game. What a bizarre finish that was. And Tom Orff, Missouri historian on Twitter, says the last time Mizzou won on a late defensive score was in 1966. Someone named Whitaker had a 60-yard interception return versus Illinois with 3 minutes left for a 21-14 victory. So that just shows you just how bizarre and unusual that game was. So glad, aren't you glad you stuck out this season despite a somewhat disappointing 7-2? I mean, I get it. It's been a little disappointing. The Tigers are still 7-2. Most college football programs would be celebrating that type of record, especially in the Southeastern Conference. But I will say this, I do think there's some merit to the idea that when the Tigers went up 16-9 with about 8.5 minutes left in the ball game, that maybe Missouri should have gone for two. I had one of my best friends. We often talk about, hey, hashtag make it 9, baby. In other words, when you go up 7, instead of taking the extra point to go up 8, there's a little bit of time left. Why not just end the game right now? Go for 2, make it 9, and basically you've now ended the game for all intents and purposes. Now, with about 8.5 minutes left, that isn't exactly ending the game per se, but considering how Oklahoma had played offense to that point, you know what? That would have basically ended the game. And also the argument here is the downside isn't that severe. If you don't get the 2-point conversion, well, you're still up a full touchdown and an extra point. You're still up 7. So it's not a severe downside calculation there, in my opinion. But I have to say, yesterday in this particular case, I'm not going to play the results here and say that Missouri should have gone for 2 simply because Blake Craig missed that PAT. In the moment, I never really thought Missouri should have gone for 2 simply because in this particular ball game, I didn't trust the Tigers to go for 2 and be successful. As simple as that. And also, the Oklahoma offense, I didn't trust them to be able to drive the ball and actually score a touchdown and then successfully convert a 2-pointer. I just wanted to keep the pressure on Oklahoma. I didn't want there to be a possibility of not converting that 2-pointer, and maybe their sideline gets a little boost there and they think, okay, at least we don't have to, a little slight psychological boost there. But most importantly, I just felt like the odds were very much in favor of Missouri if they simply went up 8 at that point, based on how the game had played out. But in general, to me, I'm more of a make it 9 strategy fan in a shootout type of scenario. Say that game was in the 30s and neither defense could really get a stop. Well, in that situation, if you do take a lead by 7 in a game where you're basically you don't have much confidence in your defense to get a stop on the other end, well, then I think the make it 9 strategy is a lot more viable. That's where I personally like it. And finally, I have to say, I do enjoy the complete absurdity, the ongoing absurdity of the Mr. Brightside controversy. Yes, fans chanting FKU while this song is played, but the university apparently doesn't want them to chant that, but they apparently want to keep playing the song. Well, I would say throwing up over the loudspeakers, beat OU, beat OU. Nice try. Really, I appreciate the effort, but I have to say that's going to be always about as effective as, say, trying to get LSU fans to say, instead of their famous foul mouth chant, smoke that tiger tail, ma'am. Why don't you just throw that on the loudspeaker? Da, 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 da. Smoke that tiger tail, ma'am. No, that's not going to work. That's stupid. It sounded stupid immediately as it came out of my mouth, and it was supposed to. It's as stupid as doing beat OU for the Mr. Brightside thing. It's been established. The die has been cast. It's over. Either play the song or don't, but stop trying to beat me over the head with the absurd chants that no one is ever going to do. So, with that said, hope you enjoyed this episode of Locked On Mizzou. I'll be back tomorrow talking more about this beautiful victory and, of course, South Carolina coming up. And we got a Missouri basketball game tomorrow as well, so plenty to get to this week upcoming for you right here on Locked On Mizzou.